Okay, welcome everyone to the UKAA Webinar, Mail and Parcel Delivery within BTR Environments, Future-Proofing and Compliance with this Essential Provision. Today, we're going to hear from Alison Orrells, CEO at the UK's leading mailbox and parcel box manufacturer, the Safety Letterbox Company, alongside Stephanie Smith, an experienced living sector operations and asset management specialist, Steve Watts and Leslie Gibbs, designing out crime officers from the Metropolitan Police, and Akash Sharma, a well-respected and experienced general manager within the BTR sector. We very much appreciate their time today, and I will hand over to Alison shortly to provide us all with an insight and a bit of history into the world of mail. Please do submit any questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and Alison will do her very best to work through them at the end. So Alison, over to you.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone joining us this morning. As Emma said, I'm Alison Orrells, CEO and Managing Director at the Safety Letterbox Company based in Neath, South Wales. Firstly, I want to thank you for attending. I feel we have a job to do, a responsibility to ensure due consideration is made to mail and parcel delivery in a responsible and compliant way. We always strive to do the right thing in our sector, and I'll try to share some of that info with you to set the scene, then on to our fantastic speakers, and I so welcome their input and giving up their valuable time. I know they have diverse vested interest in this topic. So firstly, what gives me and SLB the right to talk confidently and knowledgeably about our sector? Well, this is a very brief insight into our journey and where we've come from to be deeply embedded in BTR and the built environment as a whole, with consideration to secured by design, fire and building regs. To us, as leading UK mailbox and parcel box manufacturers, the design of a product has many facets, and it's so important the market incorporates products that links up with ESG and conforms. Part of our role is to educate and try to ensure the right product and the right decision is made. We work incredibly hard on this through governance. And the best way to explain this is to take you through our experience and journey. So this is where it started. Back in the mid-80s, my father had an engineering business, employing over 100 people in Swansea, designing, manufacturing and installing high-temperature fans for British Steel. And he was a member of Swansea Round Table in his spare time. That involved a bit of charity work, and one weekend he was delivering a food parcel to an elderly couple who happened to live on the top floor of a block of council flats. When he was there, they told him of their fear of intimidation, arson attacks, and unwanted items being pushed through their letter flap, with no means of escape. Around the same time, we'd been watching the shocking images of the Brixton riots on the TV, and this also included crime on properties via the letter flap. And so it immediately became a hot topic of conversation in our house. My father started designing and manufacturing a box that could be fitted to the back of a front door to cover the letter flap and contain the mail, but also anything else, wanted or otherwise. And he fitted it with fire trace, a tube of intumescent gas used in Formula One car engines, which extinguishes a fire. He returned to their flat and fitted the mailbox, and they were overwhelmed. They told him it was the first time they hadn't sat keeping watch over their front door at night, and they were so reassured by the product. So that became our first mailbox, aptly called Home Guard, and my father decided to introduce it to some friendly architects and developers, and the response was, well, it's a nice idea, but actually, do you have a box that would go on, in, or through the wall? And his response was, not yet, but I could create one. And so within 12 months, the first range of mailboxes were produced. Individual and banked solutions, and the business, the Safety Letterbox Company, was created. There are multiple factors to consider when buying mailboxes. Its location in a building, internal and external, the functionality and specification, the aesthetics, the price, and we're thankfully starting to see the life cycle, longevity, and responsible production of the product as a firm consideration. So as we fast forward through the next 37 years to now, on our journey, we've created over 180 designs and models of mailboxes for on, in, through the wall and freestanding, incorporating items like door entry systems, CCTV within door sets, and ensuring that no one need gain entry to wander through a building to deliver mail or anything else. We've also been driven by security and safety and the performance of a product. Our R&D team are continually working on aesthetics, design, security features, compliance to standards, testing and innovation. Our factory and offices are still based in Neath and everything we do is in-house. Back in 2002, we created the very first fire-rated mailboxes, designed and created to sit within the fire and building regs and tested to 1 hour. This satisfied the demands of the fire officer at the time and ensured that due consideration was being given to items that were within the built environment. Following Grenfell, we then pushed the test even further, with our whole fire-rated range tested in 2019 to 2 hours, pushing the boundaries of the third-party test. And this involves subjecting intensive testing on mailboxes as singles and in banks as commonly arranged on, in and through the wall. And they're tested to perform to the same standards as a fire door, BSEN 1363. Our fire-rated mailboxes can hold back a fire and contain a fire. They're tested, so if you cut a hole in a firewall along a fire route or corridor that happens to be a means of escape and recess those mailboxes, that wall needs to hold its integrity for 2 hours. Likewise, if something was lit inside a fire-rated mailbox, it would contain it for 2 hours, allowing adequate time to evacuate or extinguish the fire. Homes 2023, produced by ACPO, the Association of Chief Police Officers, and secured by design, states that there are increasing crime problems associated with the delivery of poster buildings containing multiple dwellings or bedrooms. Therefore, mail delivery that compromises the security to a building is not permitted, and facilities should be provided that enable mail to be delivered to safe and secure areas. We provide the market with solutions for all sorts of demands we face every day. And these include the performance, security, compliance, and at the same time, the need to balance aesthetics and, of course, a huge factor, price. In 2018, we committed to developing a range of products that could achieve the TS009 secured by design standard. And following 3 years of investment and development and brutal external third-party testing, we obtained third-party certification. The result is a range of highly robust mailboxes that conform to secured by design TS009. Our products are extremely robust, and we advise on the positioning, fixing, and levels of enhancement, including void areas, CCTV, use of gap restrictors, locating the product to minimize any access into the main building, and so on. We take into consideration building regs Part Q, fire regs, SBD, and balance with aesthetics, price, location, and site profile. So right now, we have over 2 million mailboxes in the UK market alone on over 65,000 sites, with the very best 2-hour fire-rated and secured by design solutions for on, in, through the wall and freestanding. We also export our products and are proud to be manufacturers of truly bespoke design-led mailbox arrangements, which can be totally unique, incorporating the use of mixed materials, finishes, lock-in options, working with many of the world's most prestigious architects, practices, and interior designers. In the last 3 years, we've exported to 22 countries and have installed our products in some of the world's most high-profile developments, such as the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. In 2012, we joined the Respected Rents Group, Europe's leading manufacturer of mailboxes and parcel boxes, now 98 years old, third generation and highly experienced, with incredible capability and resource. And this is where we began our group's journey to move into the future of our sector, parcel delivery. Just imagine this for a moment. For every location that mail is delivered, so are parcels. Not only that, but convenience, traceability, flexibility are all now modern life demands. The number of packages sent in the UK has increased exponentially between 2013 and 2021. Approximately 4.2 billion parcels were sent in the 2020-21 fiscal year, and this was an increase of over 1.3 billion parcels relative to the previous year. This huge growth of parcels demonstrates that anyone owning, designing, or building a property without a parcel solution is ignoring one of the biggest demands and growth areas of the 21st century, and COVID has accelerated this too. According to a recent Citizens Advice report, 5.5 million, that's 1 in 10 people, have had a parcel lost or stolen in the last year. And almost 7 million people experience a parcel issue relating to driver pressure. And that includes things like the driver leaving before the customer can get to the door, or leaving the parcel in an insecure place. The fact is, the high street is dying. Retailers are moving fast to e-commerce, and 93% of the population have, since COVID began, purchased online. Food, clothing, laundry, virtually everything is available to buy online and have it delivered to your home. According to the Design Council, crime in the UK has apparently fallen over the last decade, but as society and technology has evolved, new crime challenges have emerged, none more so than in parcel delivery. So the Rents Group, with the huge expertise and capabilities we have in-house, has spent the last 10 years in considerable investment into designing and creating ranges of parcel boxes, individual boxes for family homes and banks in modular columns, and along the way also incorporating a leading software company into the group to bring in-house the IT capabilities, expertise and control, and developed My Rents Box, a cloud-based solution to provide the most logical, traceable, adaptable platform, complete with app and portal. My Rents Box is an intelligent parcel system, currently in use in over 3,000 locations throughout the UK and Europe. On each, we're able to gather vital information to continue to enhance the system. It comes temperature controlled, ambient, chilled and frozen, and also can include things like the ability to pay for click and collect, laundry, house large touch screens for information and advertising, QR readers, and so on. It's highly flexible. And what started life as a residential product is now being used in a variety of scenarios. There are so many processes available to suit the needs of each client, and we discuss these options individually, and we guide and advise regarding the most appropriate number of boxes required, compliant to GDPR and IoT security protocols, and its physical location, 2-hour fire rating, secured by design guidelines, and so on. We have the advantage of producing, as I say, both the hardware and the software in-house. So I'm delighted to say that My Rents Box has also been for 2-hour fire rating testing and passed the test of EN 1363, which means that both mail boxes and parcel boxes can sit together from us in a fire route or wall if installed in accordance with our strict guidelines. And we're the first parcel box manufacturer to achieve 120 minutes for both products. As a business, we really do invest in our commitment to doing the right thing and leading from the front in our sector. Referring to the G in ESG, you know, it's important we all do the right thing, of course, and act responsibly. But there are so many factors to consider under the headings of data security and physical security. And now there's a standard that requires an intensive test and audit of all levels of the software. So developed in 2020 in line with the IoT Security Foundation, the IASME Governance Cyber Assurance Certification exceeds the government's cyber security plan. That ensures secure internet, secure devices, software and protection against malicious attack, as well as full GDPR compliance. We're delighted to have this certification to our standard and are now the first parcel locker company to achieve this. In fact, we're the first Welsh manufacturer to achieve this on any product. It's an increasingly important area and one whereby responsible buyers need to be aware and looking to include on their specifications. There's also a very real, more sinister issue with parcel delivery, I'm afraid. And we hear that the most common issues associated with delivery right now are tailgating, internal theft, theft by carriers, general public gaining access and theft, ID theft from parcels lying around, lack of resource to handle and receive the storing of parcels, putting strain on existing reception staff, and the issue of liability. And we're going to hear from Les and Steve regarding this shortly. Let me just give you a real life example. My daughter lives in a BTR development. Last year, she lived in a multi-occupancy student accommodation in central London. Every door had a letter flap in it. To me, a crazy situation. If you looked through that letter flap, you could see straight into her small room. Why would you allow that? A bank of mailboxes located centrally is easier for the postperson and removes the need to once again cut a hole in a fire door. Parcel delivery was to reception. They were inundated. Not only could you not find your parcel, you could only collect when reception was manned. They were a real fire hazard, and without sufficient space, they were left in piles in the small reception area, which was a fire route. You had the ability to read residents' names and flat numbers, so you could also identify who lived where, and anyone could actually take a parcel. Around Black Friday, you could hardly squeeze through reception for deliveries. As a parent, this was really concerning. My question is this: do we have to wait for something to go horribly wrong and an internal parcel problem to prevent exiting a building in an emergency? Fire routes are blocked, and post people and carriers have the ability to walk through multi-occupancy developments on any floor. We're working with some sites with over 4,000 parcels being delivered each week. Our mail and parcel systems can be located internally and externally, which is really important when planning spaces on site. And nowadays we talk about smart buildings, smart cities with digitalization of the built environment, and intelligent parcel systems exactly fit that vision. Efficiency, traceability, control, and the whole customer experience is more important than ever. So we have so many years of working hard on compliance, and we're sure that we have the most robust, tested, certified, compliant and suitable product on the market. I can't stress how important it is to carry out due diligence on an investment, and that solution needs to be manned and supported for years to come. Let's not forget the great last mile solution for couriers also, as it fits with the planning authorities grappling with reducing carbon impacts and traffic congestion in the modern cities. A hidden positive contribution is, of course, the environmental angle, as it reduces traffic on sites, eliminates repeat deliveries, and is a step towards a net zero environment. Parcel lockers, if produced with compliance to multiple standards and ESG, are a win-win-win for all stakeholders involved. Incidentally, in 2011, my father received an MBE for services to industry, and we still pick his brains on R&D and product development. So from just one box 37 years ago, we now find ourselves in a very different world. From social housing blocks of flats to luxury towers, we've grown with our market and become leaders in our field, part of an international group, designers, manufacturers, and suppliers and installers of mailboxes and parcel boxes. A trusted and reliable source of information environment. Do so with consideration beyond price and design, but also its physical and technical performance. We also push the importance of buying British product, of course, and we're always welcome to visit our factory and offices. So now I'm going to hand over to Les and Steve, two highly experienced technical docos, designing out crime officers, who can provide their perspective before we hear from Stephanie and Akash from the perspective of the asset, investor and operator. Les, Steve, for those on the call who are not familiar with Secured by Design and the roles that you operate, can you provide an insight into what you do and the kind of challenges we see in this space?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Leslie Jitz, I'm a serving police officer with the Metropolitan Police and a tactical advisor and a design out crime officer. What does that mean? It means our role is to provide an exposure to Secured by Design, which is a national police crime prevention initiative aimed at reducing crime. One, demand on police resources, and in turn, a reduction in the fear of crime for local communities. We work on a daily basis with planners, developers, and project teams, design teams, architectural teams in the design of buildings, where, simply put, what we're looking for right from the street level is layers of security, which starts from lighting, physical security to the building. As Alison's mentioned, the MAL is a very, very important trending problem for us currently. And then as we go deeper into the building, more and more layers of security that perhaps many of you don't actually see, because you're not meant to see the fact that it is a secure layer, because they generally do look architecturally soft, and that's the intention. But your everyday criminal, which can just be a member of the public that on a given day has been shown an opportunity and therefore steps over the breach with the intention to commit a crime, they see these things as hard layers of security, which takes time. The level of surveillance means there's a high opportunity for them to be caught. So generally, they won't commit the crime in that area, they'll move off to a softer, more vulnerable area. Steve, do you think we've captured the secure by design element enough?
Yeah, I mean, exactly as Les said, Steve Watts Met Police as well. So we can only really talk about the SBD model within London, although it is national. Les and I are a free service to those design teams and those local authorities to build buildings and reduce crime. That's it, simply put. But we also would deal with that development or building after it's been built if it's highlighted as having crime problems. So that's possibly important for the people on the call, that once the building is built, we don't just walk away from it and then never deal with it again. If you've got a rising crime, cycle crime, parcel theft, etc., we would more than happy come in and have those conversations and advice on how those problems can be mitigated or at least reduced. But yeah, in terms of secure by design, I think that's covered, Liz.
Yeah, I think one of the ongoing issues that we see is some of the projects that we work on are, master plan developments that can potentially have a lifespan of 20 years. And I've been doing this job for 8 years. I'm still working on products or projects that were started in 2010, and they won't necessarily have the same requirements as a project that was started today. So sometimes it's quite hard to influence those slightly older master plan developments, but we do our best. But we are heavily reliant on the end user and the development team reaching out to us and keeping us up to speed with progress, the next phase, rather than just continue doing what you were doing on the last one. You need to recontact us, because unfortunately crime evolves, and crime prevention needs to evolve with it. And we're always chasing it. We're always trying to stay ahead of the curve, but it's rare that we find products that will assist us to do that. And whilst we are required to be impartial, you can't help but look at the way Safety Letterbox, Alison and her team are doing everything that they can to be ahead of that curve. And for what we see on a daily basis in regards to parcel theft, I don't have another company on Secure by Design's books that are proactive as Safety Letterbox. So I don't have any shame in suggesting that people talk to Safety Letterbox Company, because I know the product stands up to the types of crimes that are happening in tall buildings or apartment buildings. What we don't do is I think only once in 8 years has an end user client, somebody on build to rent schemes, reached out to me post completion. Only once. And my office sits across 9 boroughs in the northeast of London, and we've got over 6,000 live projects, from 25,000 apartments down to 10 units, all types. And only once as a post-val2 or post-completed project with a build-to-rent team reached out to me, which is perhaps down to a lack of knowledge that we're here and that we can assist with the problems that you're encountering. And perhaps internally, the safer neighbourhood teams don't realise that we are there to assist. Steve, anything from you?
Yeah, I mean, the big interface that we have is with residents. We're getting constant complaints from residents that their parcels are being stolen. And then from the management company that's then managing that development, saying they're getting reports of parcels being stolen. The problem we have is it's massively being underreported, in terms of many residents will talk to the management company, but they don't actually report it as a crime to police. And generally, if you ring up and say your parcel's not been delivered, then there's been a history of that parcel just be resent. So we've got quite an unknown in terms of residents fraudulently reporting their own parcels have been stolen when they haven't, so they get a refund or they get a new parcel, residents stealing each other's parcels, and then people coming from the outside world and taking those parcels, and delivery drivers. At the moment, because we've got that lawless almost area where you've got that parcel room where parcels are just dumped in large numbers, you can't tell if a resident's picking up their own parcel or somebody else's parcel, whether other residents are picking up other residents' parcels, or whether the delivery driver has delivered that parcel or a blank box. So it's very difficult for us to get an exact idea. So until we've got some form of system of properly cataloguing those or putting them in secure parcel solutions, that we can stop. And it's not just unlawful people. If you put a lot of parcels in front of lawful people, that's a massive temptation for those people to then take those parcels themselves. And so until we can get rid of the lawful people and stop the lawful people from casually committing offences or fraudulently doing it because it's not in an environment where parcels are habitually taken, that we can then get down to the hardcore of criminality that do it either individually or as organised criminal networks, because it's worth a lot of money. The big issue we've got is, as Les says, we're often behind the crime curve in terms of crime prevention. The crime has to happen and then we try and prevent it. And I think this is one of those occasions where COVID has caused this huge explosion, and the delivery companies themselves are behind in terms of themselves looking at their losses for parcel theft. And my concern is it's going to reach a critical mass, a bit like vehicle crime did in the 80s, where the car companies were not interested in vehicle crime, couldn't care less about it. It wasn't until insurance companies stopped insuring certain cars or in certain postcodes that all of a sudden car manufacturers had to say, oh, we're going to have to put some security in, particularly with people working from home. So it's not just personal parcels, that you might have time to tell the parcel company the parcel's gone and to get it re-delivered. If that's, business critical or constant deliveries to try and run a business and they're being taken, then it's getting to the point where residents are complaining and saying, look, this is supposed to be secure by design. How come the parcel delivery is so poor? There's no security around it. And how come it's not being reported? It's on CCTV. Well, the CCTV just shows a parcel being taken by a person, and again, you can't prove that it's necessarily the correct parcel that's being taken. So it might well be that if we reach this critical mass, the delivery companies might have to stop delivering to certain blocks. It might be that certain addresses don't get delivered to, or it will simply just, all residents will vote with their feet and go, look, I can't live in that block, because unless I can get guarantees pretty much that my parcels are going to arrive, that I just can't exist like that. So that's the concern, that we are behind, that it's so new, that the building construction industry takes often a long time to catch up. And it's just not a crime trend that's going to go away, because parcels, it's just going to be more and more parcels that are getting delivered. So it's not something, unfortunately, that we can hope that will be a reduction in crime. It's only going to increase, and the delivery companies are going to have to do more. The built environment is going to have to do more. we as crime prevention officers are going to have to do more. But the other concern is, if it carries on and it keeps being exponential, the police response to it is not going to be able to be suitable or sufficient in the eyes of a resident, in terms of a thorough investigation and those crime types targeted, until we've got rid of that volume, almost lawful side of it, where people are, where we've got people casually committing those offences. We need it to be a minority of hardcore that we can then target, investigate, and really get to grips with this crime type. And all of that's just the theft side. The other big concern that Les and I have is the constant build-up of combustible material in those lobbies. So when we go back and visit an estate that's saying we've got reports of cycle crime and parcel crime, and that's the over and over message that we're going back to estates, and they've got these two crime types, and we're seeing either the concierge is inundated or is off or is busy with someone else, and the parcels are just dumped. So even if you've got minimal management practices in place, they can't cope with the explosion of parcels. So we're seeing a big build-up of that combustible material in those escape areas, even though it's not technically our remit as a security. It's a big, growing concern for us as well.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And also, this is why we went down the fire rating route, to ensure that if the product was in the system, that at least it could hold back or contain that fire for a couple of hours. And that ability that they have at the moment to be able to leave large quantities of parcels in reception areas, that's a massive no-no going forward. But we also have to remember that the figures look like it's set to double over the next 5 years in terms of parcel volume. And it's only going to get worse as the next generation, it becomes the norm to buy online. It's only going to grow. Steph and Akash, obviously within your areas, this is heavily within your day-to-day. Steph, in terms of your experience providing parcel solutions, what does it look like from your side?
So thanks, Alison. And actually, Les, Steve, you guys have been fantastic, and it really great to hear your perspectives and the journey also that obviously Safety Letterbox has taken. So I've had the pleasure through my career of looking at this in many ways. I started out in the industry well over 20 years ago back in the States, where it was very much, you had a clipboard, you marked down the parcels as they came in. Hopefully they weren't all just sitting in a stack and you didn't get too many that day because it was a crazy day in the office. And you just kind of hoped for the best. And it took a lot of time, a lot of telephone calls. Is my parcel down there? You're only open until 6. Why can't I come down and get it at 8? A lot of abuse thrown at the teams if a parcel was lost. And actually luckily it was not on mine, but on one of my sister communities back in the States, we actually had a circumstance where a parcel was lost, and it was actually somebody who had picked up his neighbor's package because he thought that she was cute, and he thought that he would take it over to her house for her, and it ended up becoming a bit of a stalker issue. So, there are some really bad knock-on effects you can have from having some unsecured parcels throughout your building. On top of the fact of, if you think not just losing your package, potentially losing, having identity theft occur, there are a lot of knock-on effects. And this is where I think products like this are so important to really think about and engage with the police department, your security teams, the council, to make sure that you're finding something that really makes sense from the beginning. Now, from an investment side, since I've held a few stations in between there, really thinking about one of the hiccups that I've potentially hit is that, a lot of times we're dealing with forward funded deals or forward commitments, and that's happening a lot right now. That tends to be the bulk of the deals that we are working on. And having looked at a lot of underwrites, when we're looking at these assets and the underwrites, you're not seeing where the parcel lockers are being built in, into that money on the very beginning. And that is a really big concern. And we need to work closely with our developers so they understand that this really is a pressing issue. You know, I mean, there's a lot of value engineering that sometimes goes in to make those numbers meet the underwrite, to make sure that that deal gets across the line. And, you know, you see a lot of focus on locally sourced furniture, things like that, which is obviously very important. You know, we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint, but we also need to think about the risk and impact if we don't think about something that sounds so simple, but something as important as how we receive mail, parcels in our properties. You know, I mean, yes, if you think about it, the capital expense up front, between 60 to 90K on average, depending on the size of your asset. You know, it saves time, it's adding capital value. It's also a resident service, which I know Akash will speak to in just a moment. But, you know, rather than thinking about that long-term OpEx of having to add a salary on for somebody to pretty much just handle packages all day long, when you think about, you know, I did a little bit of number crunching, and, you know, as I was preparing for the session, you know, I was looking up some data, and apparently the average amount of parcels per capita right now is 41. That's actually up from last year when I looked at similar numbers where it was 34. So you're looking over a 20% increase per capita. You know, and UK actually has the highest of all at 80 parcels per capita. So 41 is average across the world. 80 parcels per capita in the UK. That's actually double the international average, which is just crazy. And if you think about that, that's 80 million parcels per week. Amazon alone is shipping more than 1.6 million orders a day, and that's before their third-party sellers, and that's coming into about 19 orders per second. That number, and if we think about the impact that that could have on our residents, on our assets, as you mentioned, even if it's just something as simple as packages being stacked up in a fire exit, you know, or the time that it will take out of our team's days. To actually file those if you don't have a suitable solution. Those are really pretty astounding numbers. And, you know, if we're thinking about, you know, getting these solutions in very early so that you can get your residents onboarded from the very first day that you open those, you're also not going to lose you're not going to have it kind of come across as an afterthought. By not building it into the initial design, you can actually, and you'll know because I've done quite a bit of work with you and John on some of the assets, making sure that the lockers suit the brand. You can do some great colors, you can do some great designs on those. One of the things that I also found very important, think about how many packages are being touched, how many hands are on those, you know, and then if you put those into just a package room that, you know, are going to pass through many other hands as they're trying to sort through. You know, the fact that pre-COVID, you guys were already working on a microbial coating for the package lockers, where somebody can come up and can be largely touch free, and helping to eliminate some of that risk. These are all, to me, huge returns on investment on that 60K, you know, for a 300 unit property. You know, and also just if we very much think about, you know, the safety concerns, as Steve mentioned, yes, you're thinking about combustible material for the boxes, but if we think about, we don't know what people are getting shipped to them. You know, yes, you might have that initial ignition point on the cardboard or whatever, you know, it's being packaged in, but if somebody's ordering in phones with lithium batteries, if somebody's ordering in, you know, nail varnish remover that's 100% acetone, things like that, you have a knock-on effect. So you have an initial combustion point, and then you have continued risk on top of that. So that's going to have a huge impact on insurance when you think of that volume of parcels. So I think there's a lot of different pieces that this really touches, and what I feel is very important for our industry to do, working with our partners, working amongst our peers, is to stop thinking of this as it's a great resident service, but it costs a lot of money. We need to think about this broader span and how we safeguard our assets, how we safeguard our residents, you know, their identity, and then also how we help protect some of our safety for our site teams, their mental health from if they do get yelled at because a package is lost, the time that they put in every single day into registering those packages. By removing some of that human element, we actually remove some of that liability.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I mean, it's fantastic insight into the sector, and it's just such a web. It affects so many different elements. And you mentioned, how not just with the parcel volume, but the whole attitude to things has changed since COVID. And, working with Microban UK to have that facility to be able to give that peace of mind and that reassurance to have that we would be, eliminating germs on surfaces. I mean, it's all about people's well-being, the whole model of what people are looking for going forward. And I know that, in the built environment, in particular BTR, the specific needs that client base are looking for, and efficiency, that reassurance that they're going to have somebody on site, that there's somebody there 24/7, that they've got, okay, they may want a gym, or they may want their bills included and everything, but once everything's settled down and they've got over the beauty of a development, and they've got over the fact that they've got a balcony, and that that everything is there, they want the system, they want that building to operate well, they want to feel as though their day-to-day needs are fulfilled, and in a stress-free way. Akash, from your point of view, you're right there at the sharp end. What does this mean to you?
I think, I think rolling it right back to the beginning, it's, it's really important, and more so, but more so, here in 2023, but even back in 2017, when I took over the first APO build to rent scheme in Hayes, and the fact that we had a parcel locker that that had all the the facilities that that you provide, Alison, it was something that was already a sales point, and actually it took me a little bit by surprise at the time, but I clearly remember a resident saying to me, gosh, this is for me, this is a deal, I'm closing the deal on this, and it didn't quite hit me then, because because my background I was quite new to the property management industry at the time, but actually here and now it is absolutely essential. It's a crucial part of our our sales strategy, and it's a crucial part of what we offer as an amenity. We've got amenity spaces, but having these parcel lockers within these within these amenity spaces, ensuring that residents' parcels are looked after and then secured, and for us as a team to be able to audit when these parcels were put in, when they were taken out from a security level, it's absolutely essential. No longer can we turn around and say it's just a bit of a luxury. It's not. It's an absolute essential on so many different levels that have been covered already. For example, I pulled some stats off from our own parcel system here, and considering that we opened at the very beginning of 2023, effectively, we've already received 20,000 parcels in the last 12 months. Now you can consider that we didn't even have half of the complex open for most of that 12 months. And actually what we're doing now is we're averaging at 1,500 parcels per month. Now, just to put that into perspective, we've got 487 units, approximately 1,000 residents. Those 1,000 residents are bringing in, 1,500 parcels a month. And a lot, that's all the parcels that have been placed into the boxes. Because of the demographic we have and the product that we sell here, the fact is people are coming in and they're having to, for example, take unfurnished apartments, or buying bigger items, you know, and they're a little bit fewer and further between, but some of those are you know, they're taken directly to the apartments. But you know, we're still receiving 1,500 that are being logged into you know, the parcel box system. So it's, you know, it's absolutely crucial that that we have this facility, because as was quite rightly said, we would have a member of staff full-time dealing with parcels only, and you know, having that person dealing with parcels would probably still not be as you know, as efficient as the box that we have, because you know, the stats would probably be written down on paper or put onto a spreadsheet that is not as accessible. So I think it's really important. And also Steve said something earlier in regard to people voting with their feet. They really do. We have to be very mindful of security concerns and the perception of security. We have a lot of people from, you know, across the globe that live here at Apo-Q Bridge, and they come from different cultures. They have different experiences and different I guess different perceptions of London, and they, you know, they're very sensitive to security concerns, and we have an app that residents can talk on, and even the very slightest security concerns can really get whipped into a bit of a frenzy by the residents, and parcels are one of those, you know, real vulnerabilities that you know, that residents look at, and it is very important for us to be able to manage that perception of how well the security is in our complex, because it goes from parcels going missing to suddenly intruders roaming around the corridors, and you know, and then the hysteria really does whip itself up. And I've seen it several times where I've had to intervene and say, actually the parcel was quite safe. It was put under the wrong name, or it was put under a door that had the same number in a different block. And I've had to do that just to manage, you know, this perception of a community that expect maybe the type of environment they have back in wherever they've originally from. And London does have its challenges, so we need to make sure that we manage that. And in addition to that, it's also about that then seeping its way into review sites like Google, like Home Views, and that's, you know, that's extremely important for us, particularly in an environment where a lot of decisions people make are on reviews. So it's quite a myriad of things that can happen, you know, when a parcel system goes wrong. And for me, as a manager of a business, it's really important that you know, our reputation as a business, our reputation as a development is tightly controlled. And you know, the Wren's parcel box system, it really does help me do that on so many different levels, and I think that's really important to understand.
Thanks, Akash. And I think that, you know, from my point of view, it's about knowing that behind the system itself, it's robust in terms of its compliance to standards. You know, taking something at face value to do a job is just not enough. There is a responsibility, we all have a responsibility to ensure that the right product that is fit for purpose is used on sites. And the days are gone in this area, particularly, of just offsetting something based on the price. You know, there are solutions, of course, where you're going to be able to cut corners, but if you're looking at fire ratings, secured by design, Internet of Things, robustness, you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and that you've got that, it's got your back kind of thing. It's not going to be a magic wand that is going to be able to provide a solution for everything all of the time, but it's going to certainly be able to accommodate the majority of things that go on within the built environment, particularly as we look towards the growth. if we just talk back about the kind of security issues and the crime that has been witnessed from Steve and Les' point of view, I mean, what have you seen in this parcel world, just to give us a little insight into, you know, what really is going on here as far as parcel theft?
Well, I mean, the main callback that Les and I have for developments that are complete, and it's always the same two things. It's my bike's been stolen or my parcel's been stolen, and there's then enough reports to that management company that we're going back and then trying to have to target harden. And for Les and I, it's probably blocks of flats because we're London, so it's often quite big residential flats. To try and target harden that premise, that block, to try and get a secure parcel solution in, and then it's working with the management company and the residents and sometimes the local authority to then see how we can get a sort of parcel solution or smart parcel solution in there, which seems to be the go-to solution. But there's not always necessarily the space to have done it if it's an older block. But it's not just the parcel theft, it creates not just crime, but the fear of crime as well. If you're the victim of one crime, you might, you feel like you're going to be more likely the victim of another crime. And also that you might feel secure in that ground floor lobby space of a block of flats, but not when you're starting to have your property stolen. The cycle store that might be off a basement car park, you may have felt safe off that, but if you're getting your bike stolen, you know that you've got offenders, unlawful people in those spaces. So when you're going past essentially that group of youths as such, then you might feel that other crimes may occur. You may be robbed, or there's other unlawful behaviour, despite the fact that those people could be perfectly lawfully in that space. So it's not just the actual crime, it's the perception of it as well. And people put posters up in lobby spaces, and it creates neighbourhood distrust as well, because they're not always believing that it's an outside influence, that their neighbours are stealing their parcels and they believe they know who it is. So it can create those almost neighbourhood disputes that we'd have had of old over a garden fence. We now get those communal spaces where we get that antisocial behaviour or that mistrust.
Yeah, and I'm seeing statistics floating around which are sort of demonstrating that people's shopping habits are starting to be changing because they're concerned about what's going to happen when their parcel goes into multi-occupancy development in particular. And Akash, from your point of view, actually, you must be seeing crime, which, is concerning when you're managing development, because you might have people who are moving away from home for the first time, for example, and are feeling a bit vulnerable. And like Steve said, it puts so much worry and concern in their minds, if just from a parcel being stolen, that actually crime is potentially rife in that area, and what else is going on. Is that something that you've come across?
Yes, I mean, I think you'd be lucky if you were a development that didn't experience at least a touch of that type of thing happening. And particularly in London, you're going to have people who are targeting these complexes. They start to understand the systems that are in place, and that parcels are sometimes being left in vulnerable areas, etc. So I think that's always going to be the case. As a build to rent operator, what we've done is we try to analyze how our couriers work, and we know that there are certain couriers, some of the more some of the bigger household names, Royal Mail, DPD, Hermes, and they have a more set routine in the way they deliver, and actually my team and I have trained all of our couriers up to use the Rens box, and they're quite happy with how they use it, and actually they find it really, really convenient for themselves, because it means they don't have to go to multiple floors, to multiple doors, etc. Our residents find it far more convenient, because they're working either in the city or even if they're working from home, they're not able to go down immediately and get their parcels. So the app for them is absolutely superb. They've given a lot of good feedback in regard to that. And so we always know, they always know when their parcel is in, and we always know if they've collected it or not collected it or whatever else. So I think it's really important, for us as a business, that this system is in place. I think we've been fortunate, not to have experienced too much of an issue in regard to parcel thefts. Some of that is due to training and systems that we put in place. There are some operators, Amazon are probably the biggest culprits of this, where their couriers change quite frequently. So if we've trained one, the next day there's a completely different person, and they're very difficult to keep on top of. My team have a routine where they sweep the area quite regularly and input parcels that they can see that have been left on the floor or whatever else. We're fortunate too, because we've pre-designed these spaces, so we have CCTV covering them. We have locations that have been developed and structured ready for the RENS boxes in the past. And again, if we as we see the levels of parcels increasing, we already know that if we needed to, we have the capacity to expand the parcel boxes. You thankfully have that facility where we can add parcel boxes on, and also to be able to analyze the sizes and types of parcels, so we can tailor the boxes when we do need to expand them, to ensure that we're maximizing the efficiency of these lockers effectively. So that's been really helpful for us. But I think the systems are really important that we've developed in place here, so that we know we can capture any parcels that haven't been in the boxes. And also, because of the way the system is set, if we discover that somebody isn't registered on the system, we can contact them pretty quickly and get them registered up, so that we know that they that they're able to input their parcels in and ensure that they're secure each and every time. And we also have a system upon move-in now, that we're at stabilization, where all new people have the parcel access put onto their fob, onto their actual access fob, their building fob, and that we found is much easier. And it's just about streamlining processes. But what we found is people have given great feedback on that. We've not only given their fob access through the security doors, but their fob is also able to just touch and open their parcel box, and that's been a real winner for us, for people, and ease of use, because what we want is, we want people to have this seamless experience, I guess, streaming through from when they pick up the phone to ask about the apartment to when they move in, and suddenly they've got this this facility that they find, we've always had great feedback from it, that they find a real bonus to their living experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Grant Robertson sent a question over the Q&A, and I know that Akash touched on some of this in his answer, but I thought I'd read it out if that's okay, because I mean, I'll give my bit of opinion, but I think Akash is probably the better person placed for this. But Grant asked, even with a secure storage box system in place, what strategies do we have to ensure the couriers, and especially Royal Mail, actually use them? Typically, Royal Mail will turn up with a sack or two containing dozens of parcels and consider their job done. Once they've been dumped inside reception, they rarely take the time to individually place these into the boxes provided. So I'm going to turn over to Akash, but I was going to mention, this is part of the reason why I stress the importance of having the system in from the very beginning into your site, because as part of onboarding your site teams, as well as any of your couriers, it is so important to get this off on the right foot. However, Akash, as you mentioned with Amazon, and sometimes when you get different couriers, how do you normally handle that on your sites?
Okay, so again, we've been lucky to have this from the get-go, and that was part of the original design plan. And as Les and Steve have touched on before, it's really important for developers to make this a priority, just like any other safe space and secured by design initiative. But I think the main thing for us is we build a great rapport with the couriers. Amazon's a little bit more difficult, but with Royal Mail, DPD, you do have the same people coming in, and I think my team and I ensure that from the absolute moment we open the doors to them, they are under no illusion at what the process is within the building. We do not tolerate bags of parcels just being left. We explain to them quite clearly that those parcels have not been delivered if that's the way they're going to be left, and the only way they're going to be delivered is by ensuring they're secured in a RENS box, or they are taken up to the resident directly if the resident is at home, and we have that set principle within the block, and actually with a little bit of charm and a little bit of training, that really does help. You will get and we've had it a couple of times, people who are a little bit more obstinate and a little bit more stubborn, and they'll say, and I'm sure that I think it was Grant that asked the question. I'm sure that they've probably had it. That's not their job. That's not their job to go up to the 12th floor and get that in, or even not their job to simply put a name in to a very simple system, open a door and put the parcel in. The thing is, it is their job. It is their job, and we've had to escalate it to a Hermes manager, for example, in the past. But I think you just have to be firm with the couriers. It's very important you are from the minute that they step in. It's a little bit harder if you haven't got a system, and then you have to retrospectively put that system in, because what happens then is couriers are used to just dumping a bunch of parcels on the floor and running off. But even then, that's not a lost cause. You get a new system in place, and you have to implement it, and everybody on the team has to be on the same page. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult because nobody likes conflict, but if you want to have a system that's safe and secure, that is what has to be done. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, just to add to that, I've had conversations at director level with large parcel companies. I wouldn't want to name the good ones or the bad ones. I wouldn't know. But it's their opinion that's exactly as Kasia said as well, that they think it's quicker. They think it's more secure. It's better for their reputation, that it takes them out of that loop of why is that parcel not where it should be. So it's that point of delivery for them, that they're not trying to have to contact each end user to try and deliver that parcel to the actual address. If they can just go to that box, they don't have to take a photo of it, any of that, because the system does it for them. And I went to one of Les's developments that had the system to be shown it, and it was at the point where residents were coming down instantly to get those parcels as well. So that even though the delivery driver was there probably less than 2 minutes, and you think, oh well, it might get full, the residents are coming down constantly to pick those parcels up as well, which is brilliant for us in terms of security, because it's not sat around in no matter how secure that box is. It's much more secure, and if it's in their possession. So just from the conversations I had with them, they think it will improve their ecological or environmental credentials, that it's quicker for them, and it proves that they've delivered it. So it takes them out of that sort of chain of the loop of who's committed offences. So just from one, I think Royal Mail, exactly as Grant said, though, might be the trickier one. But until you've got good behaviour, good cultural behaviour from the best, it can't trickle down as such. So until you get the bigger commercial companies doing it, you're not necessarily going to get it from your main mail deliverer. But That's not saying that they could be the best. I don't know, but it's likely that there will be a company that's not as good. But if they can't actually securely deliver parcels and the others can, again, people just stop using them. So we've got to just get that good behaviour, good culture, and then it'll filter down, hopefully.
Yeah, and there's a number of other things to consider here, which is that we do offer the facility to integrate with their handheld devices to give them even more efficiency if they want it, but they choose sometimes not to accept that. You know, we've had lots of cases also where in some developments, the concierge wish to take the parcels and deposit them into the system. That's okay, because then you know it still saves them time from a collection point of view. People can collect 24/7 at a time discreetly that suits them, and they don't have to involve any other person. You know, there's a variety of ways around it, but I think that, you know, the option, like I saw when I visited my daughter last week, where there's 3 carriers queuing in the loading bay with 3 trolleys each of parcels to go up in the residence lift to get up to the 2nd floor to deliver it to reception, for them to try and process that and then be on hand for the residents to come down and then have to find it for the residents. I mean, just that element being taken away from the fact that even if they deposited it into the box themselves, if the courier refused to do their job and deliver it in safely, because of course they are given some kind of identification to prove that they have delivered. So they've got a POD when they deliver into the system, which is what they're supposed to have, let's face it. If they decide to walk away and say, I've just delivered 3 trolleys worth of parcels for the 3rd time today into this development, but that's their problem, they're going to deal with it. They can deal with it, but at least we're cutting that process in half with the fact that the resident doesn't have to then involve the staff to find their parcel. But the facility exists to streamline it even further. We have it operating in other countries whereby it's literally linked to all their handhelds. So they scan it. Not only when they scan it is it logged and their POD, but it automatically goes back and updates their system. So they don't have to do anything with that. It's live data, live information at any given time. So, you know, I would have thought, you know, it's efficiency for them. It's guaranteeing that they are doing what they're setting up to do, and you don't have repeat deliveries, guaranteeing first-time delivery. I mean, I just can't see why they would not want to integrate. And we have open or closed solutions that would enable them to do that if they wanted it exclusively for their own carriers, or if they wanted to share it with other carriers, whatever, that exists also. There's another question that's in the Q&A. If any resident has a disability, are there procedures in place to ensure that storage box is accessible? Now, I'll just kick off with this one, if I may, because it's a really, really important point. Our algorithms will create a set of situations in terms of the sizes of the boxes, and that's been created over many years of data and live intelligence. So therefore, you don't need to have a dedicated box per resident. It's dynamically allocated, so they can choose which size box the carrier wants when he turns up, and the resident will collect it from whichever size box is relevant for the size of their parcel. However, there are options to allocate boxes for specific individuals where they would be guaranteed dedicated boxes for their use, and they would be positioned in line with which would be the most accessible for their needs. So in answer to that question, yes, we do it a lot, and it's absolutely straightforward to do. There's another question here, which is the background behind me. We can see the terminal that might be logical manager of the boxes. In the case of the fire, do the boxes have mechanical lock that can be opened by special key, or their electric lock is fire resistant? So it remains the test as it was tested with the fire authorities, the fire laboratory, sorry. It stays in the locked position. That was part of the test. As part of the fire test, you cannot have any distortion of the box, any sign of flame on the front face. It cannot allow access or escape of that fire in any way, shape or form. So, and that includes that door remaining locked. So it would be a fail if it didn't, because it would ping the door open. So in response to that, it is designed to contain or hold back that fire. We also have, during planning, can the DOCO team make comment and advocate for parcels to be included within design and build a filter to planning teams? Right, sorry. So during planning, can the DOCOs make comments and push for parcel lockers and rooms to be included within the design and to build a filter to planning team? So what influence do you have, Les?
Yeah, absolutely. As part and parcel of a planning application, we are statutory consultants, and anything over 10 units automatically comes to us for review. On the majority of boroughs in London, we will make sort of comment on that and the concerns that we have for security across many topics. But one of those post-COVID has been parcel strategy. It's a section all of its own. I want to know what you're doing about A4 mail, and I want to know what you're going to do about parcel strategy. And if we get planners that support what we're trying to achieve, we'll get a planning condition attached to that scheme. And that basically means that the project team, the design team, will engage with us hopefully from the very earliest point. And then we can get those kind of changes put into the design. And sometimes they do have to apportion more space. Sometimes they do have to reduce a unit, change a plant room, reorientate a building. Sometimes it's quite dramatic what has to change. But if we have the leverage of a planning condition, then we have some kind of scope to change. Where we don't get that, it falls to the client basically accepting the advice, but from ourselves, from the design team, that this is a good thing to do. You know, and we'll do all that we can to make that happen. But often the value engineering process will remove certain layers of security, because if they don't have a requirement to achieve it, they just see it's an attack on the profit against unit costs and developing that build. That said, you know, we do get some very proactive clients who want to do everything they can, as Cash has pointed out. You know, I've worked with a couple, I won't mention the names, very proactive right from the very beginning, because it's all service orientated. We want the best for our tenants. What can we do? We have these concerns, how can we fix it? So yes, we'll give them that advice, and it is usually taken up. I tried to point out earlier on, we do have some slightly older projects that have missed the boat slightly, and they're coming up to a compliance sign-off visit, you know, and we'll go to site and we'll say, you know, we did, I know I've mentioned parcel theft to you previously, but what have you done to mitigate it? Well, we haven't done anything to mention it, client's not interested. So I'm now going to say, am I going to sign it off? Am I not going to sign it off? So that's a failure to secure by design, is not good advert for the building. And two, I will put a sort of a levy on the building, and I'll put up posters to say that the secure lobby is not a secure lobby for parcel delivery. You know, and I'll insist it goes in the handover pack, and I want to see it, so that I don't have a resident, you know, because, you know, I try to view all the residents as members of my family, and I don't want one of my children living in a really nice block having their parcel stolen every other week, and posters up in the window advertising people's mobile numbers to take it to a safe place, which is what we see. And, you know, Metropolitan Police parcel theft poster warnings, it's a complete failure, isn't it? But we have to do something to warn people. And also, you touched on it very early, that this is part of a serious organised crime trend. You know, we are seeing upwards of 20 parcels being delivered in a certain time window. And the same 3-4 people will come back. One looks very presentable. They'll tailgate, hold the door open, 3 rush in, pick up all the parcels, rush out. The people that we have seen, we've caught, and they're in the process of being dealt with. But that's because of other mitigations that we have on the street with the ANPR cameras. We can chase the vehicle, we pick up the vehicle in another area, we get it stopped, and we've got the people. So, but the value of what they're stealing has to be significant enough to warrant 4 people jumping in a vehicle, driving around London, just lifting parcels. That's all they do, all day, every day. And I'm not saying they won't stop doing it, but where we have the layers of mitigation and parcel boxes, you can see for themselves. I can't just tailgate in and lift the parcels and walk out. It's been removed. So that building is not going to get, and let's face it, every single parcel that's reported to police as stolen is registered as a burglary. So with the fact that someone's entered the building with the intention to steal. So multiply it by 20 and multiply it by how many parcels you people have spoken about today are getting stolen on a particular postcode. If those same people that are ordering parcels are also checking crime data on open source websites. And if I put in my postcode and zoom in, there's the block that I'm thinking about moving to with 30 burglaries registered against it. Am I going to move there now? Probably not. But people's perception of burglary is an invasion of their home space, right? Which is awful, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. Dealt with many, many victims of it. But this is just a parcel. It's a £12.99 top stolen from a lobby, but that's not what the crime data shows. It will show a burglary, and people's perception is someone intruded my home. Yeah. That's not a nice feeling. I don't want to move there. So, as Steve said, they will vote with their feet. And that crime data is refreshed certainly every 4 weeks. Police.uk is probably one of the sharper ones. And if you go to it, just put in your postcode. And as the map comes up, just keep zooming into it. Just keep clicking on the dots and you'll come right down to the house next door to your own, if you like. And you can see just what crime is being committed. And certainly in inner London, where we're getting the tall buildings, you'll see some quite large burglary figures. So much so that just last week, the Home Office counting rules, which is how crime is reported, not something that we're involved with, this is how the Home Office defines how crimes will be categorised and reported, that a communal lobby within a block of flats is now deemed as an unconnected building. Still a burglary, still a residential burglary, but they've now kind of isolated the lobby and termed it as an unconnected building. I'm very passionate about the crime prevention, and anything that works, I want to see it in place. And the people in the room, you're the decision makers. You're the people that need to look at this and say, yeah, we need to do more. And that's why I'm here today, basically.
Thank you, Les. And Steph, from your point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. I was going to say, Les, I agree completely. And actually, you talk about the £12.99 shirt. That's not just a £12.99 shirt. It could be your son's birthday present. It
Absolutely.
could be something that you were waiting on, that you've saved up for, especially right now. People are trying to be smart about how we spend our money, and it's still a violation. It's still a violation of our perceived safety in a building. Absolutely. Now, crime never knows any address. It can happen absolutely anywhere, but the more we can do to deter, then the better. And this is where I agree. Yes, absolutely. I see that you're putting in those recommendations, but then it also needs to come back to people like Akash, myself, our developers that we're working with, and starting to say, this is a precedent, this is expected before you even put a deal in front of me. I want that in there. I want to know that I've got room for these parcel lockers. I want to know that I have room to expand, because especially if we're already seeing 20% growth, actually plus, over 20% growth per capita in 1 year alone, we need to know that we've got the adaptability within our communities. We need to know that we have this safety, and you know, I think that this is so absolutely important that we have to start pushing this more and more. So absolutely. I mean, Akash, I know that you've done a lot of work with your development team as well, pushing for these things from the very beginning. We're lucky because there are a lot of developers who are now really getting to understand this and build to rent more and more. But sometimes there's still some education to be had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from our point of view, as a manufacturer, designer, supplier of product, we can keep knocking on doors and keep shouting about the message. But of course, people perceive us to be coming from a commercial perspective. So, you know, we're looking at it potentially for a sale. Of course, ultimately, we want to sell our product, but it's about doing the right thing. It's going back to the responsibility that we talked about right in the beginning, and about making sure that we are designing in all the correct product to ensure that the building is safe, secure, going to operate well and future-proofed. And we're not just focused in on price or coming in on budget. It's about what is the budget in the first place to include all these appropriate things. Just coming back on one thing, you mentioned about mail. We haven't talked much about mail, of course, but I can't forget about the fact that it got us to where we are today, and it's been a big part of our history. But of course, going forward, where there was space for mailboxes, and you know, a lot of them are fire-rated mailboxes or design-led mailboxes or whatever. It is possible now, and John's on the call here, our commercial manager. You know, we are talking to people about dynamically allocated mailboxes so that you can mix mail and parcel delivery within a bank. All can still be fire rated, but it doesn't mean then that you have to worry about the space for large banks of mailboxes and the parcel boxes. You could put both systems in together as one, operated with the platform, the portal, the app, just as it is. And so you would be able to have mail delivered into a mailbox, just like you'd have parcels delivered into a parcel box. It's still pinging you a notification, but it's something that we are able to offer. But of course, when there's space restrictions. And Steph, one thing that we have talked about in the past, and we have actually actioned, is where we've had to move systems in order to make sure that they were in the most efficient way. John, we've worked on this in a number of sites, haven't we?
Yeah, where we've relocated systems because it's grown, it's increased. We've looked at different locations, and we're able to do that, whether it's internal or external. Steph, we've done it on a couple of developments. Akash, we've also done it with you. And it's looking at what's best practice for the development, for the resident, for the investor, for everybody on site, and having that flexibility, whether it's a system process change or a location change, we can do that. But that's where we try to become a trusted partner rather than just selling you a system and leaving it with you. It's about developing it with you. Each development is individual. And that's the way we look at it.
Absolutely. And John, I mean, I think one of the things that I was really impressed with is that, you know, I mean, if you think about the different needs, you don't have cookie cutter assets. You've got some that have 4 buildings, some that have 1, some are, you know, quite constrained as far as space in the communal zones, depending on, you know, kind of the level of amenity space that you might have. And, you know, if you think about it on a multi-building, you're going to run into more issues with people just dumping parcels into a hallway, things like that. So being able to have multiple bays throughout the buildings, or even having a communal space in the common, you know, kind of outdoor area between the buildings where people can access it still 24 hours if, say, the front office is locking down and that's literally your only kind of communal space other than outdoors. Having that flexibility so you can kind of tweak and chop and change depending on what your property needs. And that's where it's so important to have the relationship with your provider. Regardless what company you choose, I know will be biased, you know, because I have had such a great experience, but, you know, picking up the phone and discussing the concerns, the trends, taking a look at how many parcels you're receiving. Is your algorithm still right on how many lockers you need? Are you seeing that people are getting larger and larger packages and maybe you need to add a couple on to the end? Or, you know what, we get a lot of food storage or food requests. So, you know, maybe we do need that food locker or dry cleaning, depending on the type of asset you have. having that flexibility and that relationship with your partner where you can pick up the phone, go and walk the property, talk to your boots on the ground on site, hearing what their experience is, the concerns from the residents. That's absolutely vital. And yeah, I have to say, we are in a world of subscription living, especially with some of the new rent reforms that may be coming down the road here with some of the revolving lease terms and whatnot. And, if we think about it, yes, you'll get people in the door with a flashy gym. You'll get people in the door because of a beautiful terrace. At the end of the day, the true concerns, safety, and I know that we can never completely guarantee safety, but we can definitely put in the deterrence that we need. Care that the resident's going to pick up that phone and we're going to be on the other end of it and have the time to take care of them and follow up as we need to, that their service requests are going to be taken care of in a timely manner. And, if you think about it also, even in home views, obviously safety's always been a high factor on things that people are considering. But actually now there are more and more, we're seeing direct commentary around parcel management and things to that effect as well. And, it's really important that we stay on top of that and communicate with our residents and listen to their voices too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steph. And there's just one other comment in the chat, and that is from Ian Heward. And he says, in addition to Les and Steve's residential doco expertise, he also is a doco with British Transport Police. Early consultation with planners and designers is essential to prevent, deter crime and ensure safety and security of all developments. So yeah, thank you, Ian. That's in line with our discussions, and it's really great to hear your comments. I think just as we're rounding up, because I'm conscious of time, we are now out of time, but just quickly, there was one little comment that I wanted to add, and that was from Les's dad, who lives in France. Les, very quickly, can you just give us a little sum up?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to spend a week over Easter in France, where my dad lives. He's ex-military. He's no shrinking violet, physically challenged these days, but his mind is sharp as a tack. And we were having a chat over a glass of wine, and he said to me, now then, I want to know why all these people are getting their parcels stolen in the UK. And I tried to tell him, and I went, okay, what are you going to do about it? And unfortunately, I could say to him, well, next week, I've got a meeting with the people that can make a change to, what happens and how to reduce people becoming victims. And he was kind of partially satisfied with that, but he'll demand an update very, very soon. And he's in his 96th year now. And I just find it that somebody of that age living in the middle of France, in a rural part of France, is aware of parcel theft in the UK. That's the power of the internet, isn't it? So yeah, I just wanted to leave you with that. And the fact that one of your own family is talking to you about it, again, highlights the fact just how prolific the problem is getting.
Yeah, and I think we're all experiencing parcels going missing in some way, shape or form, and our family members are too, and it's only going to get worse. So the solutions are there. Don't forget about the compliance side of it. It's not just about the front end of the solution, it's about what sits behind it that's important for everybody's peace of mind. We need to continue to build this environment as safely and responsibly as we possibly can. So thank you everybody for joining, for coming on board, for sticking with us for an hour and a half, and for hosting at UKAA. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alison, and thank you to all of our speakers today. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. I do hope you found it as insightful as I did. As a trusted voice in this rather niche area, Alison and her team are more than willing to offer their experience, advice and guidance. So I would like to encourage you to reach out to them should you wish to. A recording of this webinar from Safety Letterbox will be available on the website in a few days' time. And for our next webinar is going to be held on Tuesday, the 2nd of May. And this is going to be focusing on managing the risk of major escape of water or leaks in build to rent properties. So we hope to see you all then. And thank you again for your time.